Well, here we are. We're in Belize. We got here the day before yesterday, a little late in the day. It was a long day of travel. We left Cape Ann, Gloucester at 3 in the morning and got to Logan Airport, got on a flight to New York to JFK, arrived at about 6:30, had time for breakfast. Interestingly, my wife and I decided to have, we found this restaurant. We said, well, we should get a good meal in because we're going to be traveling on a plane. We're going to be in the air for a while. And the food on airplanes, JetBlue, isn't particularly good. So we thought, yeah, we'll eat here. And we ordered a couple of eggs. We each had a couple of, eggs and a bagel and some coffee. And at Kennedy Airport, the bill was $100 for two egg breakfasts and some home fries and a bagel, and that was it. It was rather shocking, but that's New York, so there's nothing you can really do about it. Anyway, we got out of there just fine and made it to Belize City, got on another plane, a small plane, and flew down to the town of Dungriga, which is just south of Belize City, about a half hour by plane, and then took a cab from there. Many legs to this trip. There's always a lot of legs, different modes of getting here. We arrived at the hotel, at the resort, and it's a small resort. They only have about 70 guests at a time, it seems. When we arrived, they said, "Oh, we're booked solid. We're really busy." And it's not that big of a place. It's not like a mega resort where they have a couple of hundred rooms or 500 rooms. It's nothing like that. They're all fairly small. The one we have is a good one. It's sort of there's a pool right outside. It's a very small pool with a bar, and then the beach is maybe, I don't know, 75, 80 feet from 100 feet from where I'm sitting. It's very close. And we had a nice meal when we arrived, had a couple of cocktails, and went to bed exhausted. Got up yesterday, went to the beach for a while, and then we had ceviche. They have a new restaurant they built that's an open air thatched roof restaurant out on a pier right next to where we are, and had a very nice lunch. And then we went downtown, picked up some supplies, got some, chips and dips for the room, snacks and things like that, some fruit juice. They have very good fruit juice down here. Obviously, they're huge orange producers in this area. Numbers of orange farms are everywhere, orange plantations. And one of the things we got, and we always get it when we come here because we can't get it in the United States, is this rum. This is a very good rum, and they sell it down here, and it's sort of an island favorite, or not an island, a country favorite. You see signs for this rum everywhere, and it's called Big Titty Rum. There it is. That's the rum, and it is quite delicious. It's kind of expensive actually for rum, but it's a superb rum. We like good rums, and we like the Cruzan rum that's 8 or 12 years old, and this one, Big Titty. And it's the people down here love the name of it. They think it's hilarious. There are big titty T-shirts and big titty hats, and what it really means is it's very good. They think big titties are good, I guess. So you are. It's just a local thing. It's very funny, and everybody gets the joke. And I asked somebody. I said, "Why won't you sell this in America?" And they said, "Because we'd have to change the label. We'd have to change the name of it to something else." Because they tested it apparently, and a lot of Americans found it offensive. People need to lighten up a little bit. But at any rate, here we are, and I'll do some filming around the area when I get some time. Yesterday we were pretty tied up, and today, Friday, is of course the Friday video, and we're committed to doing these each week, and whenever, as much as possible. I remember a few years ago we got here and I had left my cell phone and back home as I don't use it that much, and I realized I couldn't log into the Live Auctioneers account without it because they didn't know who I was because I was coming from a different country. Anyway, it's a security thing. So I always bring the phone now and make sure I have it. And so here we are, but we'll do some filming around this place and show you what it's like and so forth. So I think you'll find it interesting. But back to what we normally talk about, Asian art. Things are going pretty well. One of the things I wanted to point out was that there was an article that was in the Antiques Gazette, which many of you that belong to the Patreon thing get each week through your subscription with us. Is that you get a weekly copy of that. In that, there was an article this week about Alastair Simpson ran an auction in the UK of China trade wares. And the headline of the auction was that these are all Chinese export porcelains, but the big competition was coming out of Hong Kong. And that's a surprise. And, well, it's not. It's been heading that way. We've talked about it before, but the Chinese export wares are now becoming of interest to mainland Chinese and Hong Kong buyers. And that's an interesting turn. And you combine that with what we've seen with some of the more recent sales, the Americana sale at Sotheby's, and there was a couple of sales that just took place that we're going to take a look at Sotheby's again on some export wares and Chinese wares that did very, very well as other antiques are starting to do well. And this is very encouraging because, as you know, Chinese export wares are often accessories and accoutrements that go with Western antiques to compete the appearance of how collections are put together. English Chippendale furniture, French furniture, and so forth. Chinese urns and vases and China trade wares are often displayed with them in a setting, and so it seems to be an area of sort of renewed interest after nearly a 20-year lull in that market. And the sale I want to talk about, there's been a series of sale by the Tavetian collection. And he was a longtime collector. He was an interesting guy. And they did 3 sales at Sotheby's. They had one that was online, and they did 2, I think, that were live. But we're going to go through some of the results because the prices were very good. And I was very encouraged to see it. We previewed the sale a few weeks ago in the video, and because I thought it looked like nice stuff. But the other antiques, the non-Asian antiques, also in the sale did extremely well. Now, of course, the auction houses these days are being very, they're cautioning consigners. If you're going to be a consigner at one of the big auction houses or any auction house, don't go in requiring crazy estimates and crazy reserves because you're going to be very disappointed. High estimates and high reserves discourage competition. And this is something that a lot of collectors have a hard time, and dealers can never get out of their heads, that they're very risk adverse. You have to be willing to have a little bit of risk to get a lot of reward. And low estimates, low reserves attract bidders. And as we've said many times, when a person makes a bid or gets interested in an object, a sense of ownership overcomes that bidder once he places a bid, and now they're fighting to keep the piece. They're not competing anymore to bid against others. Once they place a bid on it, a sense of ownership has already come to them, and they're starting now. The viewpoint is you can't take the object away from me. And once a bidder gets into that psychology, they will often bid much more than they would have otherwise because they really have decided they really do want to own it. They really do want to collect it. But if the estimates and reserves are very, very high, they go the heck with it. And they haven't fallen in love with the piece enough yet, and then it goes by the boards. But we're going to take a look at some prices from this sale, from this series of sales, to show you how they did. All right, there was this one. This was a very nice pair of framed watercolors on wallpaper watercolors, rather. And they were framed in these nice bamboo frames. They're quite attractive. Blow it up here. There we go. And very good detail, nice coloration. The birds are beautiful and so forth. Lots of, if you like birds, this was a heck of a pair of paintings to buy. Very, very attractive, nicely done. And these were pretty good size. They were 67 by 35 inches. So they're 3 feet wide each and 5 feet tall. So these are big panels. They were estimated at $3,000 to $5,000, and they went way over that. They ended up selling for $26,400. So that tells you right away that there's some people in the West who are looking at antique auctions and buying antiques, but also willing to pay serious money for decorations, basically to hang in a dining room or a living room and that sort of thing. And then over to here, it was this pair of Kangxi period ice coolers, or wine coolers, ice buckets. These are very, very nice. Beautiful colors, lots of use of negative space, you'll notice, all around here. So the decoration really stands out. Now, these were in beautiful condition. You'll notice the gilding is all intact. There's no chipping to the enamels anywhere. They look to be very, very fine. I don't see any, angles of rubbing or anything like that. Beautifully done. And these did just fine. They were estimated at $3,000 to $7,000. They were sold for $11,500. Now, Sotheby's, keep in mind, when they post their price results, they include the buyer's premium. But that's the total price. That's a fair thing to include. They should include it. All right, and then over to this. This was nice. This was a 16-inch tall piece of carved bamboo of Shaolu riding a deer. And I thought this was great. I love, as you all know, I love these old carvings. And this was a good one. It was 16 inches tall and in beautiful condition, nice surface on it. I didn't see any breaks in it. and it was estimated at just 5 to 7,000, and it sold for a little over the high estimate, which is kind of a surprise for bamboo. Sold for $7,200 US. All right, but it was a nice example. And then other sales. This is some more other sales that they had. Here you have the fellow had a very nice Juan dressing case with a folding mirror. This was a good example. They gave it a fairly modest estimate of just 10 to 15,000, and it ended up selling for 54,000. Now in the past we've seen them sell for that much. I'm not sure quite sure why they estimated that quite the way they did. It may have just been, again, to encourage bidders. A lot of this stuff was unreserved too from this particular collection, and unreserved sales always get attention because everybody wants a bargain, and then they start bidding, and then they're not going to let go of it, like a dog with a bone. And this was a beautiful example. Beautiful example. The brasses were all in good condition. The wood was well done. It was a lot of Huanhuali, and 54,000 US for it. And then moving along over to this was that series of watercolors. There were 10 of them, export paintings of men and women in different costumes. And these were of enormous interest in the West during the 19th century and the early 20th century, and earlier, obviously, because these were done probably around 1800 to 1810. The China traders would bring them back to show people how people dressed in China. And it must have been pretty impressive to see people dressed in these beautiful silks. And standing beside these balustrades, and you have soldiers and people of the court figures and so forth. And these were very, very fine examples. And how big were these? These were good sizes. 13 by 18 inches. So these were nice sized pictures. And they were estimated at 15 to 25,000. They sold for 21,500. It's a good price, but they were very, very nice. And again, China trade. And then hopping over to this, you have a very nice Kangxi period pair of vases. These, I don't know if these would be considered, I don't know if they were a true pair, but they were awfully close. They call them a pair, so maybe they are. Often they call things pairs, and they're very, very similar, but not quite pairs. One of them is a little taller than the other one, obviously, but they look, no, they're slightly different. There is slight variations. The floating devices in this part here on the necks are a little bit different. The panels are quite similar, but just not exactly the same, but close. They like to call them complementary pairs, I guess is the expression, but they're awfully close to being exact pairs. Estimated at 6,000 to 8,000, they ended up selling for 9,600, or about $4,500, $4,800 each. And then hopping along over to this, a very nice Huanhuali low table, and they gave this a very low estimate. 6,000 to 8,000, and it ended up selling for $19,200. So obviously, a number of people really liked this table. It had beautiful color, though. It had a very nice honey color. The graining was good. The cabinet work on it was excellent, and they appeared to be in superb condition. So there you go. And they're either late Ming, early Qing, most likely, Qing Dynasty, and sold for $19,200 against a $6,000 to $8,000 estimate. And then there were these very nice jars. They had a big estimate. I said at the time, boy, that's a good estimate on those. They came awfully close to making it within the estimate range. They sold for $96,000 for these 5 Kangxi pieces. Now, these were nice jars. They were beautifully done. It's a good-looking garniture set, and complete sets don't turn up all that often. And these were pretty good size. They were 22 inches tall for the largest one, which would probably be the jars, or the tallest examples in here. But basically $100,000 for them. Again, good result. And then there was this. I commented on this because I love the shape of it. I thought the very large garlic neck top on it was very attractive, and I thought the decoration was a bit atypical, and it might appeal to people. It has there's a looseness to the drawing here that I liked a lot. Very, very freely drawn, almost. There's no rigidity to the drawing, I guess is the way I describe it. Not in the sense of the classic pieces. Now, this was a transitional example. It wasn't Kangxi, so it would have been looser and done in this manner, but unusual for the transitional period. And transitional wares, as we know, have been doing very, very well over the last few years in particular. We've talked about it many times, and this vase was estimated at $8,000 to $12,000, sold for $19,000, and it was 14 inches tall. I had to remind myself how big it was. I liked this a lot a few weeks ago. I just said, boy, that's a neat looking piece of porcelain. So somebody got it. I hope one of you got it. It's a very, very nice thing. And then poking along over to some other results, there was this. You may remember the Japanese lion dog. And that was interesting. This auction house, this was, who was this? Was Akaba had this. It was in another sale months ago and it didn't sell for some reason. And it was estimated, they have very wide estimates there, $1,000 to $5,000. That's sort of a non-estimate estimate, I guess. At any rate, it ended up selling for $2,250 plus premium, so about $2,800 to $3,000, all said and done. But it was a very nice example, and it was good size. It was about 12 inches tall, and they had said 19th century, possibly older. My feeling is that this is most likely an Edo example, and it could have been 18th century, it could have been early 19th century. But he had a great expression on its face. It was a very striking thing. And you don't see things like this very often. You just don't. These animal forms are very rare in the Japanese makers. Very interesting piece. I liked it a lot. And I think whoever got it got a great thing. And then over to this, the Chinese paintings. There were a set of 6 of these, and they called it, this was at Stair Gallery. And we talked about these a few weeks ago. I liked them because they had horses on them. And I always like, as you know, I always like to look at Chinese artwork and ceramics that have horses and animals on them because I love the way they're depicted, elephants and all this and horses, but horses in particular. And of course, Lan Xining, Giuseppe Castiglione was famous for his horses, and then of course horse paintings go back, to the Yuan dynasty. They were highly regarded, and they liked to paint them. And this was a very nice series of paintings with some calligraphy on them, beautifully done. And they had a ridiculously low estimate. They always show the picture of the framing company. I don't know. You see them putting the name of the dealer on, but not the framer. Who cares about who framed them? At any rate, this was a nice scene. These were all nice scenes. Horses along the side of a lake, and there's some poetry. And here they are up in the mountains. One of them was rolling on his back, having a good time, and so forth. And this lot was only estimated at $800 to $1,200 for all 6 of them. In other words, they were estimating them at about $200 a piece or so, $150 a piece. They ended up selling for $8,000 plus the premium, so about $10,000, $10,500 for the lot. But beautifully done, and I really don't think $1,500 or $1,600 a piece for these was too much. I think, and if you like them enough, you should absolutely go after them. But these are great. These are very, very good paintings. And then hopping along over to this, they had the bear. How big was this? 4 inches by 7 inches. This was also at Stair Gallery. We talked about this a few weeks ago because it was a very interesting animal form. And it's probably patented bronze. They're just saying patented metal because they probably couldn't verify what the underlying metal was. So they just said metal. It could also be silvered bronze, perhaps. It's hard to tell from the picture, but it was very attractive. I love the expression on his face. And it's very, it has a nice sense of animation to it. And it was estimated, I thought at the time, very reasonably, $600 to $800. So did a lot of other people apparently, because it took off and went for $1,600 plus the premium, or around that comes out to a little over $2,000 for this little figure. And it was 7 inches long, but it was a nice thing. It was genuinely a nice object. And then on to this, the Fouchau vase that was sold at Bonham's Skinner, Boston. This was the Skinner sale that took place. And we previewed this just because I thought it was a nice thing, and I thought the estimate was pretty reasonable, $3,000 to $5,000. It was Jiajing Marken period, and it measured 9 inches tall. Now, it had a restoration on the top. It had this metal cap added later for some reason. It was either damaged or they were using it for something specific that required a metal cap. But usually it's because a little bit of damage happened or something happened, and they put these cone-shaped tops on them. But it's a nice double gourd. It's a fairly classic Jiajing period shape with this sort of rounded, squared body, and then a circular, gourd shaped above with these vines and flowers and whatnot. Very classic. And it was Marken period on the bottom. There's the base. There it is. Absolutely authentic. And ended up selling for $6,000 plus the premium, or it puts it pretty high above the high estimate of $5,000, which I thought was reasonable, at that price. And ended up going it works out to about $8,500 for it. But nice looking piece of porcelain. And then hopping along over to this. This was also in the same sale. Was this very nice carving, a bamboo carving of a boy. And it looks like they didn't mention it, but it looked like he has a lacquer coating on him. Either that or it's just an enormously thick patina. But boy, it looks like lacquer. But beautifully carved. The only issue with it was that he had something in his hand, and it's missing now. Maybe a staff of some kind. Maybe a sword, who knows? Because they used to carve these, and they would carve the thing that would go in the hand separately and then insert it. And sometimes they did the same with the whole hand itself. It would be carved separately. They'd have a carving like this in bamboo or wood or something, and they'd carve ivory hands for it, and they would insert the ivory into the sockets on the ends of the arms, so it would have the hand color would stand out. And in this case, there was something in his hand that has long been lost, because people take them out, they set them aside, and then they forget what they did with them, and then it's lost forever. In 50 years, somebody will find it and say, "Wonder what this went to." But at any rate, that was a nice thing. It was about 9 inches tall, as I recall, 5 inches tall, 12 centimeters tall, and it sold for $800 plus premium, so about about $1,040 roughly. There you go. But interesting, well done 18th century carving. It looked absolutely authentic to me. And then there was this very nice Shah Savan or sumac rather woven Caucasian bag face. Basically, it's a complete bag, but it's a very, very rare one, and it had wonderful color. And it was filthy dirty. This thing is so dirty. Whoever bought this is going to get it professionally restored, and the colors on this will absolutely pop. And if you have an idea how dirty this thing is, here's the photograph of the inside of the bag. Those are cobwebs. And those look like spider eggs all over the place. So it's pretty obvious this thing was thrown into a closet, but you can see the sumac technique underneath. That's why they're showing the picture. They want to show you the weaving on the inside of the piece, and to show you that it definitely came out of an attic somewhere or something. But this will look absolutely amazing when it's done. It will look absolutely amazing when it's done. It's a beautiful thing. All right, and then on to this. This is stuff that's coming up, and this is happening at Bonham's in London. This was sold by Martin Gregory originally. He was a very prominent, we talked about him many times, sort of the premier China trade painting dealer in the world. He was in London. He's consulted and sold to many, 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 many museums, major collectors, and so forth. And he was sort of the godfather of China trade art. Extremely knowledgeable. He could look at a painting and in many cases tell you instantly where the artist was actually standing when they painted it. He knew the history of the area. He knew the periods by how the landscape appeared. He was a real font of information. And there's this one. This is porcelain making. And what you're seeing here, and I love these scenes that show porcelain making or tea making, as I say very often, because here you see them lugging down the vats of kaolin from the mines up above. And they're unbelievably heavy. And here you have some guys, they brought theirs down, and they're sitting there relaxing. He looks like he's smoking an opium pipe, sort of time off. There's another group of guys over here, another here, another here. And these were all going, of course, the kaolin would be mined and then sent to Qingdechen. And the mines were fairly close to Qingdechen as well. They weren't hauling them hundreds and hundreds of miles. They were hauling them fairly short distances back to the kilns where they could process the clay and then make porcelain. So this is a very interesting thing. If you're interested in porcelain making, you want to think about buying this. And the fact that it was sold by Martin Gregory is a good thing too, because that actually he's one of the dealers that really, if his label is on it, it really does help the provenance, because he is because of his scholarly background, is sort of he said grace over this basically. So it's a nice painting, and I love the expressions on the men's faces. They're also happy to put that heavy burden down. At any rate, it's estimated very reasonably. I think it's going to blow the estimate out. It's 1,000 to 1,500 pounds. Which seems very, very reasonable. The picture was done around 1790, and it measures 15 by 20 inches. So it's a good sized picture. It's a good sized picture. Expect it to bring 4,000 to 6,000, I would think, given how China trade paintings have been doing lately, but we'll see. And another thing I wanted to mention was that William Smith, this is sort of on the American furniture side, William Smith up in Plainfield, New Hampshire, he's a very good auctioneer. There's a couple of very good New England auctioneers, another one I'm going to mention in a minute. This is a beautiful flame birch mahogany federal period chest done around, between 1795 and 1810 probably. But all these panels on the front are made of veneers of flame birch. And you'll notice how they look like flames, the way the grain runs off to the left and the grain runs off to the right. And here they mount them vertically to differentiate it. And this was a classic pattern used on early federal furniture, on the best federal furniture. We're done with these panels in this manner. Beautifully done. The apron looks complete. The feet are full height. If you look at the bottom, you notice this slight turning out at the foot. It turns into a pad. And on some chests, you'll see sometimes it ends right up here. It ends up higher, sort of just goes to the ground. And that's because at some point in its life, getting dragged across floors or something happened to it, the wood gets a little chipped. They start to get a little tippy. And New England Yankees wouldn't just throw a piece away because the leg was damaged. They just cut them all down to make them look even, or maybe replace the leg completely. In this case, it looks like the original bases are all there. And original bases and feet on American furniture are very, very important to have. It's some of the first things that furniture people that collect look at is the base original, are the feet all original, and does the piece have its full height? Is often a big concern. Anyway, this one is estimated at $1,500 to $2,500. It's already got a bid at $750, and it'll probably make that reserve. It may go that estimate rather. It may go above it. You never know. These kinds of chests are often associated with Salem and sometimes associated with Portsmouth, New Hampshire, that sort of thing, by the better cabinet makers. But this one is beautiful. The brasses look good. I can't tell if the brasses are original or not because I don't think they included a picture. Brasses are often replaced. There's the underside of it. All the glue blocks, all the blocks appear to be in their right spots. This one, somebody at one point put some screws or nails into to hold in place. It may have come loose and they had to re-glue it. You see that sometimes. But the blocks around the front look fine, and so forth. But that's what the bottom of these chests should look like, pretty much. See how it does. And then, it's an empty tab. Okay, anyway, I don't know what was in there. This is another thing that Will Smith has. If you like China trade porcelain, this is a very nice pistol handle urn. And it's got this nice grisaille pattern in the middle here. This looks like looks like a European coastal scene, Holland or England maybe, in grisaille decoration, and then famille rose all the way around. The only comment I saw on this was that there was some restoration to the lid, not to the body of the piece. And it's got this very nice faux bois decoration at the bottom here. The plinth that it's sitting on is all faux bois. It looks like wood grain, like a wood block, mahogany, that kind of thing. That was something that the Chinese were masters at. And when the China traders went over there and realized they could do faux bois, they would often add it onto the bases of things for that effect. It was very popular with the Emperor Qianlong. Okay, here we are. This page. Oh, that's just that page that was loading was just that. Okay, never mind. So this is a good looking thing. This is a nice thing. Very inexpensive estimate, $500 to $700. I expect it'll go over that, probably bring $1,000 to $1,500, but we'll see. And another thing that's in the William Smith sale is this. It's a very nice Rhode Island Queen Anne bonnet top highboy. And these are nice early ones. Beautiful, beautiful color. This one looks like it's pretty much in the rough. It needs some oil. It needs a little treatment. It looks like they may have re-glued one of the bands on here. That might need to be cleaned up. But this is a good, authentic example. Beautiful bonnet top. You want to double check to see if that finial is original. Often they've replaced them. Sometimes people would take them off in the way they did in Europe. Also, with these plinths in the center of the tops of furniture, they would put pieces of silver, an urn, or a piece of Chinese export porcelain. And that finial may be a later replacement. It may be original, but they'll be able to tell you. They'll be able to tell you by looking at it. And there you go, $2,000 to $3,000 estimate with a $1,000 opening bid. And then Gordon. This is outside of the realm of Chinese stuff, obviously, but this is a Gordon Grant watercolor. He was a very, very prominent American painter. He died in 1962, and he painted a lot up here up in Gloucester, where we are most of the time. And this is his classic type of work. Very, very good. There were a lot of Gordon Grant engravings around. He was very popular. He was extremely popular. And this is a fairly classic dock scene that you would have seen in Gloucester back in the 1920s, of men hauling buckets of fish ashore from the schooners, because they were still on schooners back then, and so forth. And then over to this. And then over to this. This is the Devin Moisan sale. And Devin is a friend of mine up in New Hampshire, in Epping, New Hampshire. He's got 3 days of sales coming up. This is the last day on March 2nd. He's got some very interesting pieces of Chinese export porcelain in it. One of them is this. This is a few weeks ago, you may remember we looked at some Chinese export punch bowls, and the ones that had the ones that did the best, interestingly, they were China trade, but they had Chinese taste scenes on them, the kind of things that the Chinese buyer might be interested in, because they show scenes of Chinese figures. And here you have a Lohan bowl with these oversized Lohan figures on it. This is a very unusual piece of porcelain. Really, really is. And these big figures, there's no border decoration. And here you have Lohans and Immortals and so forth. Here you have a tiger on it. Another one is carrying a pagoda. They're carrying sort of treats. This one's got symbols that's going to clang together and so forth. Very dragon in the sky up here, a dragon above them, and so forth. This is a very, very interesting punch bowl. It measures around, I think it was 14 inches was the size of this, 13.6 inches, estimated at $5,000 to $7,000 with a $2,500 opening bid. This should do very well. This is a very interesting piece of porcelain and highly unusual. If you like unusual China trade, or if you like immortal objects, immortals painted on objects, you want to look at this. This bowl could do very, very well. And then over to this very nice Chinese, this is also at Devin's sale, very nice hardwood Chinese square table, probably 18th century from what I'm seeing. It's in nice condition, it's good color, it's got its full height. Again, the same thing goes for Chinese furniture too. Notice these sort of stirred, curved feet on them. These are the spade form feet. This is full height. In other words, if it goes down, it doesn't have these little devices on the bottom. It means that the piece has been trimmed down because one of the bottoms of the feet got damaged. But here you have it. This has all of its original height. Very nice wood color. It's a beautiful piece of furniture. $400 to $600 estimate. That's very low. That's a very, very low estimate. It's already got 2 bids. It's up to 2.25. The sale is on March 2nd, and I suspect this will do quite well, bring several $1,000s, and it's worth it. And this is a big table, and this will be a heavy table. It's 34 by 34 inches roughly in size, so it's good size, nice height, and good color. All right, and then over to this. Now there's several porcelain lots in here, and we don't usually talk too much about rose mandarin wares, but these are very unusual. And there's these, and we're going to get to a whole bunch of plates with the same pattern on it. They obviously came out of the same collection with this lime green ground, but notice the pattern of all the mandarin figures going around the outside. Extremely unusual in this size and scale. It's funny because the Japanese did the Kutani wares that have lots of figures on them that were done like this much, much later. And maybe they were trying to mimic this type, but it's not a pattern you see very often in the West. These are very unusual, and there's a tureen as well. All right, and the estimate is fairly reasonable, $500 to $800. I think it's going to do much better than that. The platter is about 14 inches in diameter and looks to be in very nice condition. And then over here, I think there are 40 pieces here, including the lid to a vegetable dish. They obviously don't have the dish anymore, but somebody was smart enough to save the cover. It's a very interesting lid, and it's got a big gilded berry finial on top. And then you have all of these plates in that same pattern that we just looked at over here. These are all the dishes that went with it. There are 39 or 40 of them in here. You want to check it out, get condition reports and so forth. But overall, these look very intriguing. And you could make a wall of these in a room. You could just, find a big wall and just put them all on plate hooks. And it would be absolutely great. It would be very impactful. And these are estimated at just $400 to $600 for all of them. I think this lot will probably bring $3,000 to $5,000, but we'll see. But it's a very, he believes in low estimates, low reserves, and just sell the stuff, and you're going to get an audience. He gets very good attendance because people like him. It's like they're like Will Smith. They have good loyal following because people have learned to trust them over the years. What you see is what you get, and that's not that common in a lot of auction environments today. Okay. A lot of disappointments out there. And then he has this. These are nice. I want to show these. I had done a video over the Patreon subscribers for these a few days ago. These are 15 inches tall. These are celadon ground, first half of the 19th century vases. Beautifully done, underglazed blue decoration, landscape scenes. Not a lot of border decoration. This is sort of free flowing all the way around, and it's a nice looking pair of them. They seem to be pretty much perfectly matched from what I'm seeing. They're identical. And one of them, the one on the right, maybe an eighth of an inch taller from the photograph, maybe the camera angle too. Anyway, 15 1/4 inches tall, estimated at just $400 to $600 for them. You do want to get condition. He's got a thing in there. Please get a hold of them. They give out condition reports 24 to 48, up to 24 to 48 hours before the sale. Sale's on March 2nd, so you have plenty of time. Be sure to get condition reports. But these are very attractive. And there's a bunch of other sales coming up. There's a Chinese sale coming up at Sotheby's in March. I think Bonham's has a few things coming along. So it'll be an interesting next few weeks. But that's it for this week with us. And I hope you enjoyed it. And as I said, we'll get out and do some shooting around the area in the next few days and share what we're seeing. We won't talk about antiques too much. I'll just show you the place and what it looks like and so forth. But there we are. All right. Thank you for watching and have a great week. Okay. Bye-bye.